Welcome back to another Roll the DiSE podcast, the podcast from the Diploma in Sporting Excellence team car here in Tenerife, and I believe we are on episode 4. So if you haven't already checked out the first 3 episodes about some different aspects of world-class basics, what the DiSE program is, and how you can develop on the bike as a junior, then check those out now. They're all in the same playlist. And I am here with
Nick Tilling,
aka Roadstar Sports, head coach of DiSE Cycling at SGS.
and I'm here with.
Well, I'm going to say Benjamin Scape because I got told off for using Nick's full name on the last podcast. So there you go, that's my Sunday name. But today we've got a few things to talk about, namely why the F word belongs in junior cycling. And we feel quite strongly about this.
The F word.
The F word, I know. Very taboo, very taboo. But first, I'll cover off what activities we did today, actually, because this morning I was in the school with the athletes. They were delivering some more PE activity, so we'll throw in a couple of videos over the top. But today the focus was on switching up the groups and kind of developing their coaching skills a bit more to include slightly more variety, because a lot of the classes we have now, we've already done one session for already. But they did really well, the kids absolutely loved it. There was loads of laughter, which is always a really good measure when you're coaching young children. And actually it was really nice weather this morning. It was like overcast and nice and cool. So that's what we got up to this morning. And before we start the serious stuff, we always have a little bit of a witty chat. And today's theme is, from Nick, what is the optimal time duration for a coffee stop, and also what are you eating at the coffee stop, like middle of a big ride kind of coffee stop. I want to hear Nick's answer first of all.
Well, I've changed my mind on this recently, and it must be because I'm getting older, because I do not respond well to a coffee stop anymore.
Oof.
So if I have a coffee stop now, I find it really hard to get going. And so now what I end up doing is staying in there for longer, which makes it even harder to get going. So I think the optimal duration for a coffee stop is maximum 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's a specific quantity of carbohydrate that you should aim to eat above or not at all. I'm not going to tell you what that is, because you have to be on DiSE to find that out.
Of course. And this is the witty section. We like to keep it light.
Oh yeah, that wasn't supposed
And speaking of keeping it light, I'm going to go totally opposite to Nick, because I'm a mountain biker. Cafe stop happens in the middle of the day. You know, you've done a couple of laps of the forest. You smash a very light sponge cake, something like that. Smash it down, get out for a few more laps. This is not physical conditioning advice. This is simply what I like to eat in the cafe stop. And I didn't even look, but I'm sure Nick was shaking his head.
Sounds great to me. Yeah, I'll join you.
And a coffee, especially over winter. A coffee to warm you up.
Yeah.
You know, wet and muddy. Don't like that. Coffee and cake.
Cyclists seem to love coffee and cake. It seems to be a thing. Like a lot of bike clubs now seem to be doing a lot of coffee and cake.
Coffee and cake rides. Yeah, it does seem to be quite a popular thing, doesn't it? Okay, so well, on to the serious topic, because today is a big one, right? Why the F word belongs in junior cycling. And personally, I think there's not enough coaches who are encouraging their riders to do this. Don't know about you, Nick, but that's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we say what the F word is?
Well, yeah, because, you know, some of our riders need to use the F word a little bit more, actually, especially while they're out here, you know, doing really serious rides. The F word is essential, and the F word is, of course, fun. So we hope you clicked on the video expecting some rowdy, controversial opinions, but the F word is fun. It's crucial to junior cycling, and so that's the theme of today's podcast, is why we should be including more fun in our training, in your coaching if you're a coach, or even just in your riding if you're a rider. You know, I'm going to talk first of all about what got me onto this subject lately. There's a campaign from UK Coaching, like the governing body or development body for coaches in the UK, called PlayTheirWay. It's all about the rights of a child, which, you know, include the right to basically, in a nutshell, have fun. And I believe that it exists at all levels of the sport. Now, interestingly, you saw an article the other day that got us chatting about this as well. which was what?
So I found it actually. So the article was in Cycling News, 18th of October 24, and the title is "We're Not All Like Pogacar or Remco. Talented teenagers give up on dream of turning professional." And in a nutshell, this article is about a couple of riders, Gabriel Berg and Cormac Nisbet, who are effectively Devo team riders, but they've quit the sport because it's basically too much. And it's too much. Well, I say it's too much, but too much what? Well, it sounds like it's too much pressure. It's too much demand, but I think also it's not enough fun. And certainly the sport has become more professional, more professionalized over the last ever since professional cycling has existed, which is the 1950s and 60s onwards. It's become increasingly professional, and there's now a demand for junior riders to to be brought into the pro peloton, because they're potentially world-class riders at absolutely cheap as chips prices, because they haven't really achieved anything yet, because they're still juniors. So it means that juniors are quite sought after, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I think probably where this falls down is that you might be going into a pro team, but is that at the expense of your enjoyment of the sport? Because we talk about Remco and Pogacar. Okay, let's say they're the two best riders in the world at the moment. Probably fairly safe to say that they absolutely love cycling. They love training, they love racing. Okay, they love winning. But when that love of the sport goes because it's not fun anymore, then
it becomes a job.
It becomes a job, but it also becomes extremely difficult to make the commitments, the sacrifices, and actually to without putting it too bluntly, to put your neck on the line in a race, to move into a gap, or to move up the peloton, or to take part in a lead out or a sprint. You have to be fully into it to do that. You have to be really, you have to be driven from within. What we call intrinsically motivated.
And fun's a large part of that.
Fun is a massive part of that. That's how all of these guys got into the sport in the first place. But we were talking a moment ago about something called Goodhart's Law, and just so I don't butcher this, I'll read it out from my notes. So when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a good measure. So that could be applied to junior cyclists obsessing over watts. Okay, because if you're obsessing over watts, then maybe that's one of the reasons why you're lacking the fun element, because everything you do is
based on one thing,
is to chase after that number. Okay, and that number is often FTP, and FTP in itself is not a it's not a wholly reliable number. And there are lots of issues with FTP. It's a field-based test, it's not lab-based test. It's got some flaws, but it's only one element of cycling performance. And so as well as it extracting the fun from training, or cycling I should say, extracting the fun from cycling, it also becomes something which if you're focusing on it's going to be detrimental to other areas of your performance. So I do think there's it seems to me like a little bit of knowledge can sometimes be a dangerous thing when it gets into the wrong hands. The juniors, not necessarily the coaches, because coaches are doing a good job, right? And that most coaches are working for free, so trying to help. But when the fun element starts to take second place at this age, I don't think first of all, I don't think you'll make it to professionals, and you definitely won't stay there.
And what's quite interesting is obviously a lot of juniors and a lot of coaches are really worried about having that physical training plan down to a T, perfect. You don't want them to overtrain so they get ill. You don't want them to overdo themselves at a certain point in the season, or if you're aiming for a race, that's the point you want to peak. But if you don't consider that fun element and you neglect it entirely, it's almost like overtraining, and kind of you're forced off the bike. You don't have fun. They quit the sport.
Yeah.
And if they quit the sport before that big race, or before they join the professional team, then what has all the effort and coaching been for? And so, I guess let's talk about how to incorporate fun into your rides, into your coaching. Personally, I think one of the best ways to do this, as a mountain biker at least, or even on the road, is just spend 5 minutes. That's all it takes at the end of every ride, messing around on your bike. If you finish in a garage, for example, like we do, or just out on your street, go and do some wheelies, go and hop up and down the curbs, challenge yourself to see how long you can track stand for, and it has a great side effect of developing your technical skills as well. So there's that, but also it's just fun.
Yeah,
it's just fun, and often by just going out and having fun, you kind of have this huge benefit of just practicing your technical skills without any focus on anything else.
Yeah, one of the things that I think works well in road cycling is using the bike to explore.
Yeah,
because it's quite easy to get trapped into doing the same roads all the time.
Bit of adventure.
Yeah, and I mean, most people will live in an area where there are probably more roads available to them than they think. So do some exploring, or if you've got the option to do this, go and stay with a friend, somebody who may be living in a slightly different part of the country, who's a friend through cycling, and go on some rides together at their house, and then they come down to you, do some rides together, because you're both then experiencing some new roads, and it's social. It's
the social aspect as well of it. We were just talking about cafe stops, right? Sometimes cycling can be a bit of a lonely sport if you're out and about by yourself.
Yeah.
But just meeting up with friends, having fun. It's perhaps a hobby you share with family members or friends.
Yeah.
You can you meet new people through it, and all of this is just more likely to make you want to ride more. No one wants to do a job that they don't enjoy, and pro cycling is a job.
Yeah, and
but for many, it's the best job in the world.
And it's too hard to do if you don't enjoy it.
Oh, exactly.
No matter
it's
how,
not an easy job, is it?
No matter how good the money is.
Yeah, it's not an easy job at all.
Yeah. I mean, there are lots of examples of riders who've quit the sport earlier than they could have done, but they just had enough.
I mean, look at people like Tom Pidcock, Van der Poel. I mean, there's that great photo of Van der Poel wheeling a time trial bike. He's just having fun. Tom Pidcock. All these people who ride the XC courses, you see them, they're just whipping and jibbing and throwing tables over every little jump, drop and corner, because they enjoy it.
Yeah.
They don't do that because it's faster or anything like that. They do that because they enjoy it.
No, and I think that in road cycling that wouldn't look the same, I don't think, because all of those things you just said there, I've got no idea what any of that means.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do a podcast episode where it's like teaching Nick. There we go.
Yeah.
Next podcast, we're going to get Nick to guess mountain bike jargon.
Women in Jipping sounds like our other podcast, content for our other podcast.
Yeah, but we're going to get Nick to guess some mountain bike jargon, so tune in for episode 5.
Yeah, but should I tell you what we do on the road?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is chatting and hanging out with your friends.
Social.
You're kind of hanging out with your friends.
It's fun.
That's fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, there you go. There's not a lot to say about it, really. It's like an awfully simple subject of keeping it simple, and just having fun. So, I think we'll conclude today's podcast there. Again, we've stopped at a perfect point. It's almost like we planned this. But our message to you is, a rider, plan fun into your training schedule. It's what you deserve. It can keep you in the sport. And for coaches, fun should be a part of athlete development, and especially if you're working with juniors. We do that?
I think we should, because
these guys are going to want some Haribos.
And they need some fun.
Exactly. Haribos are pretty fun.
Well, if you've got a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
I'm too much of a... Well, I know I've got a sweet tooth, but it's chocolate, not sweets.
Well, yeah. Okay. And tell you what we'll get Will to sign off the podcast.
Come and say hello on the podcast.
Can you just say goodbye to people? We're finishing up.
Don't swear.
Okay, this has been the Roll the DiSE podcast with me, Ben Scaife, Nicholas Tilling, and signing it off from Will.
See you later, guys.
Can you stop using my full name, because that only gets used when I'm in trouble?
Nick Tilling. Alright, see you on the next one.